Welcome to Biblical Theology. Today, we wanted to do a short video on Genesis 1:1. And what I wanted to do is just look at this verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And I wanted us to just look at some observations on the text, look at some parallel passages, some cross references, to look at some notes from other scholars and some suggested teaching points. Hope you find this video helpful. Please like it if you do, and let's dive in. So, observations on the text. So, our text, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Interesting thing, the word heavens, Shemayim, is a dual, plural, usually used of two things, and so kind of jumps out, why is the word heavens in the dual? Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim et ha'aretz. Great text, claims to be 3,500 years old. Pretty simple. The Greek translation, the Septuagint, NRK epoiesin, hatheos ton uranon, so they're not interpreting this as a plural, and the earth, kind of everything there is. You might say, well, hey, that's pretty straightforward. I mean, what kind of notes can you have on a text like that? Well, when we come to this word Bereshit, so we're going to go in order here, these 7 words, and we'll start with the first one. Bereshit, it means in the beginning, or literally in beginning. Pretty straightforward. Pronounced Bereshit. So this is the in part, and then the Reshit is beginning. In Greek, it's NRK. Pretty straightforward. And it's interesting that Greek, NRK, is the same exact way John 1:1 starts. And so there might be a connection. We'll look at that a little later. Not really much debate about the word. Some wonder if it's a construct, if you could go in the beginning of God creating. It's spelled the same way both uses, so we don't know. When we come to this second word, bara, it's clear that the only thing it can mean is he created. So when we go 2 words into the Hebrew text and we come to creation, it isn't just anyone creating, it's a he that's creating. And you might say, well, how in the world can you tell it's a he? Well, when you come to a verb chart, and this is the verb chart in Hebrew, when you have these things, the stuff in red determines, okay, is it we, is it you, women, is it you men? And you see, when you add nothing to the end, when bara has nothing, this is the conjugation, so it has to be third masculine, singular, and it's a perfect, a call perfect, the simple, or grun stem, and it's just the perfect, he did it. It's pronounced bara, it means he created, not she created or they created, he created. It can't mean she created, because if you were going to go she created, you would have to add this on the end, and you can see it doesn't have that. And it can't mean they created, because if you do third common plural, you would add that on the end, and you see it doesn't have that, so it can't mean they created. This is the full chart, the Kal, Nifal, Piel, Pual, Hifil, Hafal, Hithpael, and basically that's just simple, the intensive, the causative, the reflexive, and then the passive of those. And you can see, you just add little stuff to the beginning and end, and it tells you exactly what it has to be. So when we come to bara, this second word, it has to mean he created. The problem comes when it starts describing who this he is who created. Because when we come to the word Elohim, there's something really, really weird in the text. And it's a huge problem, and everyone who's ever looked at the text in the original recognizes that there's a problem. It's pronounced Elohim, and here's the problem. Let's see if I can explain it to you. If you have a word, like cherub, one cherub is a cherub, but a bunch of cherubs is cherubim. One seraph is a burning creature in God's presence, Isaiah 6. One is a seraph. A bunch are called seraphim. Oddly enough, in Hebrew, the word dog means fish, and so a bunch of fish would be dogim. And there are 10,000 words you can come, and if you add im to the end of it, it converts the word from a singular to a plural. And here's the chart. So this is the word horse. And so if you're talking about a male horse, it's sus. If you're talking about a female horse, it's susa. If you're talking about two horses, it's susaim. So that's a dual. If you're talking about two female horses, it's susaphim. You add this on the end, it makes it feminine dual. But if you come down here to a plural, so this is a horse, then susim would be a bunch of horses, more than two horses. And so when you come to the word God, the really weird feature about that use is other things being equal, you normally would translate it gods. Eloah is the word God, and you can maybe see there's nothing on the end, but if you add this im, this is how you convert a word from being singular to plural. And so Moses uses the word Eloah in Deuteronomy, and so the question is, why is this plural there? And you might say, well, I just don't believe that Elohim is plural. Well, BibleWorks, a great program, they're not selling anymore, but they have this thing called the graphic search engine. And if you go to the Hebrew text and just type in Elohim, it'll pull up 635 verses. And what I did is say, show me everywhere where in the Hebrew text you've got the word Elohim, but everywhere in the English ESV, I chose the ESV, you translate this word as gods. And what you do, I didn't pull all of them. I think there's 76 times, but this is one of many. You shall have no other gods before me. There will not be to you Elohim acharim, other gods, plural. So, and if we had time, we'd just go through all 70 plus ones where this is plural, and it would make the point that normally this im word is how you convert a singular to a plural, how you go from God to gods. And so when we get in the beginning Elohim created, this Elohim is actually a plural. And if you're looking at this and you're an English reader and it says, well, doesn't it say he created God? Well, okay, in English it would say that, but in Hebrew you don't put the subjects before, and you mark the direct object with this word et. So what did the He create? He created the heavens and the earth, and you see et, va et. So when you come to Rashid bara, in the beginning He created, and then it tells you who the He is. It's telling you that He is this entity called Elohim, which is plural. Now, you might say, well, did any of the ancient translators talk about that? Well, it may be that the Jerusalem Targum, this is Etheridge's translation, it may be that the Targumist is trying to explain that, because it says, in wisdom, in Hokmah, the Lord created. So that's kind of a strange phrase. I mean, you could read this as what's called a Beit Essentii. In the Reshit, Elohim created. It's unclear to me if that's what the Targum is doing. The Targum is an ancient translation where when people couldn't read Hebrew anymore, they translated the Hebrew text into Aramaic. And there are several early Targums, and this is one. The Fuller quote, this is Etheridge's Fragments of the Jerusalem Targum, in wisdom the Lord created. If we look at Targum Neophiti, this is Martin McNamara's translation, from the beginning with wisdom, the Memra of the Lord created and perfected the heavens and the earth. Okay, so what's crazy about that is this Memra for the Targumists was a way to talk about God's eminence. And Memra means word in Aramaic. So from the beginning with wisdom, the word of the Lord created and perfected the heavens and the earth. And McNamara has this note, and this comes from Liturgical Press, the Aramaic Bible, and it says, from the beginning with wisdom. This is a double translation. A lot of times in ancient translations, if you didn't really know how to handle something, you translate it both possible ways you could do it. And that happens all the time. It's called a double translation. And so the Targumists here, Neophiti, might say, well, you could read this in the beginning, but you could read it with wisdom. And McNamara says, this is a double translation of the Hebrew text, Bereshit as beginning and as wisdom, from the creation of the world by or in wisdom. And you have Proverbs 8:22, 3:19. You have an apocryphal text, wisdom. You've got Psalm 104:24. And McNamara writes, rabbinic tradition identifying wisdom and the Torah speaks of God creating the world by the Torah, where beginning equals the Torah. And that's in Genesis Rabbah 1:4. In the beginning, by means of the Torah, God created. So we start looking at these ancient translations, and we realize this very simple statement, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It may not be quite as simple as it appears to be in English. There might be all kinds of important theological things being said. When we come to biblical parallels, that's exactly what the New Testament is doing. And so a couple of passages just wanted to point out. One is when you compare Genesis 1:1-5 with John 1:1-5, it seems, at least to me and to some other scholars too, that John is actually unpacking this text for us. John 1:1-5, in effect, is a commentary on Genesis 1:1-5, and both texts start with "in the beginning." And if this word God is plural, it's interesting that Elohim becomes, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. This is kind of unpacking that plurality within the unity of God. All things were made through Him, created the heavens and the earth. And heavens and the earth, another way to say in Hebrew, all things. God said, let there be light, and there was light. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. I don't know, you tell me, and maybe you can put below in the comment section whether you think that this is developing it or not. It seems like John is explaining that text and saying, hey, this was an actual factual historic event, but it points beyond itself to a greater spiritual truth. When we look at some other parallels, this is a beautiful one to me. Psalm 51:10, create in me a clean heart, O God. And you see our word bara is there. Create for me, O Elohim, a lave tahor, a pure heart. David, this is when he's committed adultery with Bathsheba and killed Uriah to try to be a hypocrite and cover up his sin by killing a righteous friend. David is saying, if I'm ever going to have a pure heart, Elohim, please create it for me. And you start, thinking how that might be connected. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The pure in heart, create for me. And even, this would be the Greek translation. You can see all of these are picking up that bara idea, and it's God doing it. And Ezekiel 36, one of my favorite passages, and the promise is God will give you a new heart. Well, how's He going to give it to you? Well, could it be that He's creating a pure heart, a clean heart? He's creating the thing that will be necessary for someone to see and interact with Him. Philo, rough contemporary of Jesus, it's interesting that when he comes to an Old Testament text, he talks about these two most ancient powers, which are always close to the living God, one of which is called His creative power and the other His royal power. The creative power is called God, for it is by this He made and arranged the universe. And so you wonder, is He reading our, Genesis text somehow? And the other power is the Lord. And I think it's this passage, he's describing the Ark of the Covenant in the temple. So here's a rough contemporary of Jesus, and he's talking about plural figures being a representation of God on earth. And you start wondering, what did the early Christians do with things like that? In another work, The Life of Moses, he says nearly the same things. The two most ancient and supreme powers of the divine God, His creative and kingly power. His creative power is called God, according to which He arrayed and created and adorned this universe. And His kingly power is called Lord. So this is kind of ancient Jewish text, and it seems to me at least playing with this idea of plurality within the greater unity of God. And we've seen that this, Bereshit bara Elohim may be doing exactly that. Now, I didn't want this to be a long video, so I'm not going to look at a lot of notes, but one that I wanted to do is from B.B. Warfield, and this is from the Works of B.B. Warfield, Volume 2, and it's page 140 to 142 if you want to track down the quote, but I wanted just to kind of summarize it. And Warfield asks the question, is Elohim in Genesis 1 the Trinity? And Warfield is going to say, well, when Moses wrote, the Trinity had not been invented as a word, so is it there? And he's going to say, well, in one sense, you're going to say, well, no. But Warfield has this beautiful analogy. He says the Old Testament is like a lavishly furnished room dimly lit. So I picked this kind of library room. And so imagine this is the Old Testament. He said what you have in Genesis 1 is like this beautiful ornate room, but it's just almost completely dark. Maybe, it's night outside, and so you come in this room and, you've got one candle in the room. And so you could maybe make out, that there's a book over here or a table, but you only have one candle and you can't really see that well. Warfield said progressive revelation is like more and more candles coming into the room. So the content of the room doesn't change, but your perception as to what's in the room becomes clear. And so he says, by the time you get to the New Testament and you have this plurality within the unity of God revealed as Father, Son, and Spirit, you start going back and looking at Elohim, and you have this plural figure who is being described as a he who created. And Warfield will say, and the only explanation that really fits that is what the later church described, in the doctrine of the Trinity. So I might, point out that the word Elohim appears many times in the text. Nearly always the verbs are he, singular. There are a few times, I think in the Abraham story, it uses Elohim and it uses plural verbs, but most of the time it's he will do it. And, is it presenting this idea of God as a he/they, God as an I who is also a we, a he/they, an I/we, or the church's elegant term, a triunitas, a trifold unity. And God is describing himself. The God of the Bible is describing himself in that way. Listen, thanks for watching this video. If you find it helpful, hit the like button and subscribe. I'm going to try to, this summer, kind of go through one verse at a time while I'm off from school, and so look forward to talking with you. I hope the Lord will bless you, and I'll see you next time.